Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. During 3 decades in the hospitality industry, I focused my work on creating exceptional experiences for the customers we serve. My goal for this podcast? Educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By creating hospitality with a purpose, by bringing the customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, we're going to explore some essential strategies that you can use and tactics that are going to make you successful in creating a memorable holiday experience in your senior living restaurants, dining rooms, catered events, and even throughout the entire community. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and I'm going to lead you through today on a number of things that take us through our journey in creating a successful and memorable holiday season. First, let's talk about some things that are going to really impact how this is all going to go down, right? Obviously, the first place I want to start is talking about staffing, right? Normally, when we think about the holiday season, staffing is the last place that we really start when we think about it. We start thinking about decorations, we start talking about menus and events and how we're going to do all of these things. But really, what we have to start with and understand is where are we at with our staffing, right? We know that we have to have the right staff who know how to do the right things and are trained to be able to handle an increased demand during the holiday season. We know the uptick in families that are going to visit from out of town, who want to come in and see, who are going to attend our events. All of this is going to increase. So, what can we do to be successful about addressing the staffing challenges? Obviously, we want to think about this when we're doing our menu planning, right? We want to think about, can we do some different things around menu planning? Can we be creative with what we offer? This is a perfect opportunity to put together multiple menus and multiple events, or maybe you're doing like a prefix menu. You know, staffing isn't necessarily needed to take orders as much, and you can be really more strategic about how you use your staff. Another thing is, don't stop recruiting, right? I think a lot of times we get into the throes of the holiday season and we really focus on what's happening inside the walls of our community. And we don't think about, hey, we need to continue to recruit. We need to continue to staff, because the best time for bringing in new staff and being able to maybe spend some time on training and development is when you're doing some of these specialized events. Just imagine, right? If you're doing a shortened menu, or if you're doing a holiday event where you've got all hands on deck manager support, think about, now I've got this staff seeing what we're doing, but they're more engaged. We're able to spend a little bit more time with them in the downtime, making sure they understand where things are at. That also allows us to, get through some of the staffing challenges we may see. So I think it's important that we don't give up on the recruiting, make it an opportunity to maybe look at some of those part-time staff that are interested in full-time positions, or maybe if you're using some agency staff that you'd like to bring on board full-time. This is another great opportunity with your special events and activities. Maybe work on bringing them more into the fold of your community and your operation. The other thing to remember is that one of the biggest staffing challenges you're going to have over the next few weeks is going to be around scheduling your existing staff. The ability for you to embrace a flexible schedule over the next few weeks is really going to be important, right? We're going to need staff to help us with those evening events. We're going to want some help maybe on the weekends, but we also know that our staff is going to want to have time off to spend with their families. So a lot of things you can do around scheduling can really be important to help out and create those win-win situations. Imagine, for example, doing your Christmas party for employees on a Tuesday afternoon as opposed to a Friday evening, or doing your family events maybe on a Thursday night as opposed to a Saturday. There's a lot of things around this that you can do when you think about what's the flow of your community, what makes sense, how can we put on a great event and also make sure that we meet the needs of our families, the families of our employees, I should say. We also know that we may need some seasonal staff. We talked about some of those part-timers and some of that agency staffing. Again, another opportunity to think about this, right? Many of us are under the gun with, hey, we got to limit agency staffing. We don't want that overtime. So being creative about this, understanding that, hey, we know we're in the holiday season. We need to ramp this up. Is this a marketing event? Can we combine budgets? Can we bring staffing in? You know, doing a shortened menu for perhaps a lunch meal, knowing we're going to do a big dinner event. Things like that all kind of come together when we think about some of the staffing challenges that we can face in our community. Another area that's going to be really important, and all of our chefs that are out there listening are going to know this, is going to be around the menus, right? The holidays can become very, very stressful for us as we're planning all of these events and we're trying to do different activities and we want to be creative. And so we know we're going to have a lot of extra administrative work around menus. So one of the things though I think is really important is that we try to be proactive with our menu planning, right? So don't just think about, all right, I'm going to get through Thanksgiving. And once I'm through Thanksgiving, now I'm going to get into, I got some holiday parties and I've got some things here with families that are wanting to do some stuff. And then I've got to do the management party and I got to do this and I got to do a resident party with the employees and all of those things as I mentioned them, you can probably feel some of your anxiety creeping up about them. Be smart and strategic and start thinking about, okay, these are the events that we're going to do every year, right? We know we do a Thanksgiving meal, we do an employee Thanksgiving, we do an employee party, we do a resident employee party. Make that list now. I know that we're right on top of Thanksgiving, and so it's not too late though, because you can take this weekend and the week between Thanksgiving and the 1st of December to really get ahead of the game and start thinking about how can I be successful with this. The other thing you can do is you can start thinking about that inventory, right? Like, hey, I know I've got budgets of $500 for this event and an extra $1,000 for this one and an extra 250 for this one. Start thinking about how can I take all of those budgets and create one big holiday event budget and then start being strategic about how I buy and plan inventory, right? Maybe we wanna do some prime rib for the event. Well, maybe we do carve prime rib for one event, and maybe we do some prime rib sliders for another event. And, we can look at maybe we're gonna do some hams or some turkeys. Whatever you're looking at to be festive, think about how can I repurpose or how can I do purchases in advance, manage my inventory where I can maximize those budgets and those dollars, right? Because at the end of the day, we're wanting to create something unique for every event, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to have completely brand new ingredients and a brand new inventory list for what we're offering. The menus can be cohesive and they can be in sync with each other. And that'll really help you in the long run, right? So that first week of December, you're buying things that you may need for the rest of the month. And you're just filling in for specialty ingredients here and there as events come along. So really think about that as you're doing that meticulous menu planning and how that's going to help you manage your inventory and your budget as you go through the month of December. Obviously, when you think about your holiday menus, we want to make sure that we really hit on some of those traditional and seasonal dishes that are really going to kind of bring back nostalgia for our senior residents. So don't hesitate to engage your residents in some of this process of planning your menus, right? Today, I want to tell you about one of Tressel's senior living partners, Belter. Belter is a food service design, equipment, and supply company that has been providing expert guidance to the food and beverage industry for nearly a century. A strategic partner to the most successful food service operations in the country, Belter provides support in kitchen and bar design, equipment procurement and install, and supplies. Their team of senior living food service experts have experience across the continuum of care. From independent living to skilled nursing and CCRCs, Belter specializes in right sizing new facilities, modernizing remodels, and providing the right food service equipment and supplies. At Belter, they are committed to creating memorable experiences for their customers and their guests. With their top notch team and a global network of quality supplier partners, their customer focused approach is built on a foundation of collaboration and decades of industry experience. So, thank you for considering Belter for all of your food service needs. You may find that there are some very traditional recipes that are either family recipes or maybe date back a few years or even decades that maybe are going to be great for our resident population, right? And again, that's something to think about, right? If I'm serving my residents a meal, I can be a lot more traditional and I can look back at ingredients. Maybe you know roasted root vegetables are a great dish, but is it appropriate for this group? Do they wanna see something, more home style, right? It all depends on your group, obviously, but the goal is when you're thinking about some of these specialty menus, after you take into consideration the budgeting and all of that, you're really trying to create these experiences that are gonna resonate with kind of the festive traditions and the preferences of your residents in your community. Now, when we start thinking about how we engage others in our holiday festivities, so you think about employees, you think about families, you think about maybe prospects coming in or prospect families coming in. There's a great opportunity here to really look at being a little bit more creative and innovative, right? We talked a little bit about the inventory aspect of that, where you can repurpose items in multiple different ways. Well, this menu innovation can really help you with that. Think about some of the current trends. Think about recipes that you'd like to try. Think about mocktails and cocktails that you can pair with your recipes and your menus, right? But think about how great it would be to start a menu and instead of having to offer some crazy over the top appetizer, maybe you start with a simple cranberry spritzer mocktail, right? Something that gets everybody kind of in the mood. It's festive, it's different. But again, we're trying to be a little more innovative and creative with how we go about putting together these menus for a broader audience, if you will, right? Yet again, think about the multitude of generations that we are approaching, especially when you think about something like a resident employee holiday party, right? You've got Gen Gen Z, you've got millennials, Gen X, boomers, even a little bit of the silent generation still living in our communities. So you've got this wide grouping of people. How do you kind of create things that are gonna be innovative and meet everybody's kind of needs, but also be fun and festive? And it kinda gives everybody the opportunity to try something new without really stepping out of their comfort zone too far, and feeling kind of like they're not included in the festivities. One thing that I think that you can do when you think about some of this kind of innovation or these menus is really think about how can we start to incorporate global flavors and global menu items into this, right? Our population, our employees are much more diverse than they were 10 or 15 years or 20 years ago. And so we know that we want to kind of try and speak to them. And so there may be things that we do when we think about global flavors and global cuisines when we get into our menus. Maybe your employee menu for a holiday is solely based on, kind of this idea of a global potluck, if you will. It gives you as a culinarian and a food service professional to really an opportunity to kind of flex those creative skills and to try out those new recipes and get comfortable with new ingredients. And at the same time, it helps to honor those people that we're serving and that we're taking care of as a part of our community, of employees and those that are serving our residents. So think about how we can incorporate some of those varied global flavors into our cuisine as we go through the menu. So, um, and then obviously the last thing I want you to really think about when it comes to menu planning and design, is kind of that health and wellness approach, right? Now, we know that the holidays are notorious for this is when we're going to gain some weight. We know that we're going to cheat a lot. We know that we're going to get off our diets and our routines and all of that. But we still want to try and be mindful about how can we still bring some health and wellness into what we're doing. So that way we can help be part of the solution for those that are looking for something a little bit lighter. So, thinking about things like maybe more plant-based options, right? Maybe think about more festive salad, maybe doing some appetizers that are more plant-based, things of that nature might be good. Thinking about how you can do reducing the added sugars and even reduce your sodium in the holiday meals. So when you think about that and you think about this health and wellness, the other piece is we're trying to also think about the dietary preferences of our residents and those that we're serving. Because again, we can't deviate from diets a lot of times in senior living when we're worried about this holiday. Sometimes people can be left out if we don't consider this as part of it. So it's a great way to think about, those specialty dietary preferences and allergies and how can I incorporate all of that? And again, all of these things we're talking about, it really goes back to that whole entire concept of being proactive and being forward thinking in how you're going to build your menus out, right? When it comes to the holidays, we know that the menu is going to be a focal point, just like it is in your home. What am I having? What are we serving? Who's going to be there? What are they like? How we put our menus together are really going to be a critical key to how successful our holiday season can be. And you got to think about it all the way through, not just Thanksgiving and those Christmas parties, but you got to think about Christmas Day and the week in between Christmas and New Year's Day and how we kind of transition over into, January and that first of the year and then thinking about how we make all of that seamless. So it's really important that we take really an in-depth look at our menus, how we plan them, how we are strategic about it. And this time between the end of Thanksgiving and that first week of December is going to be critical for you to be successful with. Let's talk a little bit now about creating the right environment, right? Most of us are going to go out. We're going to know that our communities are going to be decked out. We're going to trim them out. We're going to have Christmas trees and lights and, all sorts of decorations around. But we want to think about how do we do it in a subtle way so as to not overwhelm our residents, right?
A Navigator is the largest full-service GPO that exclusively focuses on the senior living community. And what that means is we provide products and services that help our members provide a great environment for their residents, such as like MRO, hospitality equipment, food, business products, as well as technology solutions. We actually surround our members with a level of support unmatched in the industry.
So, think about, well, how can we adjust the music that we're playing in the dining room? The other thing is, do we play music in the dining rooms to begin with, right? You don't want to have that sudden culture shock of, oh, well, it's the holidays. We got to start putting on the Christmas music in the dining room if we don't do music in the dining room most of the rest of the year, right? So think about how do I transition smoothly without really overdoing it and creating an overwhelming environment of holidays. Again, you got to take into consideration that, this is our resident's home, but it may be a new home for them too, right? Maybe this is their first time away from their traditions and their ritual and their what they're used to in their previous lives. And so we want to be mindful of that, giving them the opportunity to participate, but also not overdoing it too much because we want to make sure that it's a warm and welcoming environment. The other thing to think about is, you know, Are we honoring everybody's holiday tradition, right? We know that Christmas is the biggest one, but we also have Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all of the other holidays that are coming here over the next few weeks. And so we got to make sure that as we create this environment, are we incorporating all of this from our various traditions, not just from our residents, but from our employees and from the extended family of support that comes into our communities, right? We want to make sure everybody feels welcome. And obviously, we talked about the menu piece, but the ambiance and the decor we put together is really going to make this a key element to it. Another thing that we can do to think about that community experience around creating a festive environment is thinking about holiday themed events, right? Now, what I'm talking about isn't necessarily holiday themed food events, right? We know we're gonna have meals and we're not gonna do that. But let's think about things that we can do that are gonna enhance the overall atmosphere. Think about the resident engagement calendar and are we doing some outside the box thinking, right? Maybe, something as simple as doing cookie decorating, right? Very traditional, very simple, but maybe broaden it, maybe make it more incorporating other, traditions and religions and the way people celebrate, right? What are things that your residents do, right? Engage your residents and find out what activities are important to them. You know, there may be certain traditions that they want to uphold. Maybe there's ways that you can incorporate that into your calendar so that those people can honor their traditions and other residents and employees maybe learn about those traditions at the same time. One of the things that I think is so important is that we have to engage our residents not just in basic activities, but how are we, getting them mentally engaged in all of this, right? And so maybe something as simple as doing holiday education sessions where, you know, we learn about this holiday or we learn about this story as a part of this tradition. Maybe we learn about how a holiday as broad as Christmas is, how it's celebrated in different parts of the world, right? There are so many different ways and so many different traditions on how the holidays can be viewed. Maybe it's an opportunity to step outside that box and create those educational activities around things like that. Musical performances and celebrations. Those we're going to do all of those things, but start thinking outside the box about how we can really engage and create activities and calendar items and broader holiday themed events that'll really allow us to be successful in the long run. The last thing I want to talk about as we start thinking about the successful holiday season, right, is what are you doing to be promoting this, right? Because I know it gets scary when we think about, well, if we promote it too much, we're going to get too many people and we're going to get overwhelmed. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We want our communities to be seen as these vibrant hubs of life, right? And, one of the things that I talk to operators about all the time is, you know, when you think about food and you think about what we can do and what we put on plates and on buffets, it's such a huge marketing opportunity for our communities, right? Well, just showing pictures of the local school choir coming in and singing, that's great. We want to keep doing that. But let's think further, right? How can we promote that? Hey, we're engaging in this. Hey, we want to invite the outside community to one of those holiday education events we just created, right? How do we do that, right? Using technology like Zoom or, if we're going to have events, maybe doing some online reservations. So that way families and guests can really prepare and we know what to expect. A lot of these things are really going to help us better manage that and really put our communities out there. I think doing that, offering that insight is going to be really important. But I think some behind the scenes is really important as well, right? Just think about how impactful it could be to do a 2 or 3 minute video and you post it on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, where the chef is talking about, hey, we're doing this great Hanukkah buffet, and I've got this great Jewish recipe that I've created, and I'm innovating it in this way, and here's the ingredients that I'm using, and I'm taking this traditional item, and I'm putting a spin on it because I want to do something new and unique for the residents and their guests. Something like that is really going to grab people's attention and grab eyeballs because it's not the normal type of strategy for promoting what that people are expecting to see, right? They expect to see beautiful plates and happy smiley faces. Let's let them see the background. Let's let them see what's happening behind the scenes, right? Because there's so much work and so much that goes into it. You'd be amazed at the impact you can have by even just talking about, hey, we have this huge calendar of events coming up, and I want to talk with my chef and my engagement director about how they're working together to create this immense holiday atmosphere over the next few weeks, right? And maybe it's shorts, maybe it's bite-sized pieces that you put out over the course of a few days or a couple of weeks. But again, think creatively about all of the touch points that are happening, right? You can talk with families, you can interview guests and prospects. You can do, something as simple as we're doing the tree lighting ceremony and what goes into putting that event on. A lot of people are really interested in seeing the how it's done, right? Really popular videos on recipes and how things are made and all of that. So do those things to increase your ability to maybe go more viral and to get more eyes and views on yourself online and maybe even in the media because of the way you're promoting not just your holiday calendar, but your holiday experience inside of your senior living community. So you know, we've got a few more great interviews coming up over the next few weeks on Tips from Trestle. We're going to be taking a break over the last couple of weeks of December and the first couple of weeks in January, and we're going to be re-promoting some of our great interviews from this year. And so, I hope you've gotten some great tips from listening to today's podcast. I apologize for my voice being a little scratchy, but it is that time of year. So want to wish you and yours a happy holiday season. Best of luck on taking and creating the most memorable holiday experience you can for your senior living communities. And as always, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle. So there you have it, another one in the books. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.